basic human rights. Forced marriage describes a marriage that takes place without the free or valid consent of one or both of the partners and involve either physical or emotional duress.
You know, just a moment, just before you go on.
Yeah.
What exactly is your concern in all that he's raised?
My concern is he spoke about that a girl is ready for marriage when they began to menstruate, right, from the age of 9.
When she's attained the age of puberty, I mean,
it
differs from girl to girl.
Yeah, well, when we actually try to speak about the age of puberty, I mean, what age are we talking about? That's number one. Number two.
He predicated it on a certain law.
Yeah, which law?
He says Sharia law.
Sharia law doesn't reign supreme over the law of the land.
No, you see, there's some fundamentals. Okay, but finish up. We'll come to that. You were talking about the second point.
Yeah, and the second point was he spoke about that 9, 11, 12, 13, that when they begin to menstruate, and he spoke about something like when they began to bring out breast. You see, all those sort of things doesn't. I mean, I listened to him on air, and as a parent, I was shocked for him to be able to make mention of such words.
Were you shocked that he mentioned it alone, or that he predicated it on a certain law which exists?
If I may ask a question here, obviously which concerns I believe every Nigerian citizen. I mean, which reigns supreme? Is it a religious law or a legislative and assented law of the land?
I think we're mixing something up here, because, I mean, if we know how all of this came to light, first of all, I think that, you know, certain laws are left to the states and the local government. I mean, customary law, marriage is one of them, so they let them do that. One of the things he raised yesterday is the fact that even though the Senate or the National Assembly has promulgated the Child Rights Act, he says it's not constitutional because many states have refused to domesticate it because of the sole reason that, you know, marriage is under the jurisdiction of the states and the customary courts. Now, coming to, you know, the issue that was at hand, you know, the amendment of the Constitution, a particular section I was talking about, renunciation of citizenship, which was the matter at hand, and, you know, how they had talked about how, you know, anybody who is above 18 can renounce their citizenship, and any woman who is married is of age. You know, any woman who is married is of age. He didn't say girl or, you know, that was a particular line that gave the Senate cause for concern, because they were trying to expunge that. Since they had already talked about age in the very first instance, what was the need of putting any woman who was married is actually deemed fit to be of age? You know, that was what caused it. So it's already in the Constitution that if you're married, you are allowed to renounce, you know, your citizenship, if that is what you so wish to do. And he raised the objection that if you take that away, you'll be going against Islamic law. So it's not like a law, Islamic law superseding the law of the land. The law of the land still stands. So they could not get the 75% of the votes that they needed to expunge that.
Sorry to cut you in. You just mentioned a woman. A 9-year-old is a woman? Of course not. A 10-year-old, a 13-year-old is a woman? Of course not. So the age is what's in question in here. Now, I'm going to give you this, which I think will clarify this issue. Now,
I think I should ask a question. When do we say someone is a woman? A host of people believe that when somebody is married, they automatically become women.
A woman, we have, these are children. A 9-year-old, a 10-year-old is still a child. You can classify such age as a woman. A woman is when you are developed, when you have the consent, you can actually make decision by yourself as an adult. An adult, I mean, start from I believe, from the age of 18. Now, if you're 18 years old, you can make decision, you are mentally sound, and of course, in some civilized society, if you are between 16 and 18 and you want to go into marriage, you still have to seek the consent, or the consent of the parents has to be involved. That is between 16 and 18. Now, when he's talking about 9-year-old, 10-year-old, 13-year-old, then I think that is pathetic. That is questionable, because
he refused to talk about age.
No, he did mention. He said when when a woman reaches at the age of 9 begins to menstruate. He did mention that. 9.
If I listen to that interview very carefully, he refused very categorically to mention age. He talked about maturity and puberty.
You know,
which is subjective?
Which is subjective in the sense that, you know, it comes for different girls at different ages.
I believe if you can listen to that tape again, if it's available, and I'll listen to it, I'll watch it clearly. He mentioned age 9, 10, 11, and 13. And he clearly mentioned it and said the only person or the only people that can decide if a girl is mature are the parents, which is wrong in this case, because at that age, a parent cannot decide if that little girl is mature enough for marriage, which is wrong.
Did you also find it disturbing that he refused to differentiate? Because I remember the anchor asked that question, you know, as to mental maturity and physical maturity. So that somebody is physically ready.
Yeah.
You can see all the physical attributes of developing young woman. But you cannot attest to her mental capacity to be able to stand the rigors of marriage.
You can't at that age, of course you can't. I mean, what in 9 years, or between 9 and 10 and 11, what's mental alertness? Do you think they're going to be able to make a decision on what's going to happen to their life? They're going to be living with a man permanently. You see, when all these things happens, if you try to look at why all this thing happens, we're talking about poverty, we're talking about, lack of education, lack of awareness, and when the parents, if a parent should decide and say, my child is old enough to go into marriage at the age of 10, I think that is wrong.
That's wrong. What do you think, as a Nigerian citizen, since you're so disturbed by this, what would you like to see done?
I think the law should be revealed.
Which of the laws?
The Marriage Act. And before we go into that, I mean, because, like I said earlier, Nigeria consented and signed a lot of law guiding this child marriage. And if you allow me to read some of them, which they actually consented to, and if this is happening, then of course I think it's going against what they've actually assented to.
Do you see our country as being very complex in the sense that, yes, Nigeria can sign, you know, ratify, agree to all of these international conventions on, you know, being against child marriage and all of that. But when we come home, we find out that our constitution, you know, clearly stipulates where we stop. So there's something as basic as what the National Assembly has done in terms of passing the Child Rights Act cannot even be domesticated in states so that it's just there, it's powerless.
I think we should be talking and be looking into the governance in this country as well, because you can't go out there being a member of a body or ratify any sort of law that affects the entirety of the country, and you come back to the country and you can't put that into practice. Now, of course, when that happens, then we are putting ourselves in a situation whereby, I mean, if they're going to have to take any action against us, then it's going to come on as a blanket on everybody, which is not going to be right, because some few people out there who went and actually consented to this on our behalf are not actually coming down back home.
Sorry, who wants to take action against us?
Well, the body that we actually signed to.
Okay. Is that what you want to, part of what you want to read?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. I'll just give you one or two of what I have in here, which is actually very, very concerning to me.
Which document is that, by the way?
It's actually a UN document. That is actually from the United Nations Population Fund document that I actually have in here.
Okay.
Right. I'll start by going by the Nigerian law on marriage as well. The only clear legal framework on the age of marriage is the one provided by international treaties. Nigeria is a signatory to some of these treaties. Anyone interested in understanding the provision of international law on this issue should look at Article 16 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948, Article 1 of Supplementary Convention on the Abolition of Slavery, the Slave Trade, the institution and practice similar to slavery, the Convention on Consent to Marriage, minimum age for marriage, and registration of marriage, 1964. Article 2 and 16 of Convention on the elimination of all forms of discrimination